The scrape of chair legs across linoleum sliced through the open plan office, sharp as broken glass. Heads turned. Then, as if on cue, they turned back down to glowing screens. Shoulders hunched, silence thickening into complicity. At the center of it all stood Frank Delaney. 56 years old, silver cufflinks glinting under the fluorescent lights, his tailored suit straining against the bulk of a body softened by boardroom dinners. He leaned over a desk that looked too small beneath his weight, one manicured finger. Pressing against a stack of papers like a hammer pinning a nail. "You think your kind earns a seat at this table by accident?" His voice carried, not loud but sharpened with contempt. West Haven hires too many dreamers these days. People who confuse luck for worth. The words fell on Jordan Hayes like cold ash. He did not flinch. He did not look up. His palms rested flat upon the proposal spread before him. Neat. Precise handwriting filled every margin, a blueprint of ideas. No one else in the room had bothered to attempt. Frank smirked at Jordan's silence. 2 weeks on the job and you are already playing executive? Harvard graduate, sure. But let us not pretend we do not know how that story goes. Special programs, special favors, special handouts. A rustle of discomfort swept across the desks. No one spoke. The hum of computers filled the void, punctuated by the faint buzz of the office's aging fluorescent lights. Jordan straightened his tie. The movement deliberate, calm. His eyes finally lifted, meeting Frank's. There was no defiance. In them, no plea either, only clarity. "I know exactly where I stand," he said. His voice level as stone. For a fraction of a second, Frank's smugness wavered. Then he chuckled, dismissive, as though swatting away an insect. "Crystal clear," he said. Jordan lowered his gaze again, as if the exchange had ended. But beneath his stillness, something stirred. A secret. A truth that neither Frank nor anyone else in this office had considered. 2 weeks earlier, Jordan had walked into West Haven, corporation's headquarters, with nothing but a leather satchel under his arm and purpose in his stride. 32 years. Old, tall, but unassuming, he bore the quiet polish of someone who had fought for every credential stitched into his resume. His navy suit was pressed, his shoes shined, but what lingered in the air around him was not ambition. It was intent. Elaine Monroe, from Human Resources, had greeted him warmly that morning. Her handshake firm, her smile holding something unspoken, was one of only 2 people who knew the truth. "Welcome to West Haven, Mr. Hayes," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly as if weighing his composure. "We are eager to see what you bring to the team." "Thank you for the opportunity," Jordan had replied, his voice even. What Elaine knew and what no paperwork revealed was that Jordan Hayes was not just another hire. He was Jordan Hayes West Haven, son of the company's founder and principal, shareholder. He could have taken an office on the top floor the moment he arrived. Instead, he had chosen this path, to walk among the rank and file, unannounced, unrecognized. To see with his own eyes the culture his father's empire had bred. Frank Delaney had not asked his name that first day. He had looked Jordan over, lips curling slightly, then pointed toward the farthest corner desk. Past the glowing whiteboards and glass-walled conference rooms. "There," he said. "Less distraction for the rest of us." The corner desk was half hidden by filing cabinets, its overhead light flickering. Jordan had sat down without protest, setting his satchel neatly beside him. Within hours, he noticed the contrast. Another new hire, a young man named Cole Whitman, was ushered personally by Frank from desk to desk, introduced warmly as a creative, dynamo and included immediately in project discussions. Cole's resume was thinner, his experience shorter, his posture less certain. Yet Frank had beamed as if unwrapping a prized heirloom. That evening, in the solitude of his apartment, Jordan opened a leather-bound notebook and began writing. His pen moved with quiet precision. Day 1. Observations. Hierarchy masked as meritocracy. Patterns visible in first hour. The ink dried in silence, his face unreadable. Now, in the bright sterility of the office 2 weeks later, Jordan's notebook contained more than observations, contained a case. The open plan room still buzzed. faintly with the aftertaste of Frank's humiliation, colleagues' eyes darting and retreating. Jordan adjusted his tie again, not as a nervous tick but as a silent marker. Pause before a storm. What Frank did not know and what the office would soon discover was that the quiet man at the corner desk had come not to blend in, but to expose. Jordan's stillness was not weakness. It was the patience of someone who understood that real judgment was not loud, not immediate. It was earned, slowly, deliberately, until the truth could no longer be ignored. The seed had been planted. Recognition and wanted, undeniable, was beginning to take root. The conference room reeked faintly of stale coffee and glass cleaner. Morning light spilled in harsh streaks through tall windows. Bleaching the polished table where the marketing team had gathered, screens glowed with Frank Delaney's latest pitch, images of yachts and champagne flutes shimmering against the walls. "As you can see," Frank announced, gesturing toward the display with a sleek black marker, "the luxury tier is where we keep our brand untouchable. Exclusivity sells, it always has." Nods rippled dutifully around the table, few shifted uncomfortably, eyes dropping to their notepads, pens clicking nervously. They had all read the same reports, seen the same numbers. But silence was safer than correction. In his seat near the end, Jordan Hayes studied the data carefully, his fingers laced together on the table. He noticed the flaw instantly. He noticed the way the numbers bent against Frank's story, the truth strained to fit the shape of ego. Jordan cleared his throat. A small sound, yet it cut through the room like a blade.
Ow.
Respectfully, he began, his tone measured, calm. "The data from the last 2 quarters suggests the luxury angle is alienating our core base. Our customers choose us for reliability, not prestige. Positioning our brand this way may create more distance than appeal." The words landed like pebbles in a pond, rippling outward. Several colleagues exchanged fleeting glances, but their mouths stayed shut. Frank's grip on the marker tightened, his jaw worked, teeth pressing against words he had not planned to hear. "Interesting perspective," he said, his smile brittle. Though perhaps a bit bold for someone still finding the supply closet. Low chuckle escaped from Cole Whitman, seated across the table, eager to be on the right side of the laughter. Jordan did not smile. "I have reviewed all campaign performance reports from the past 3 years," he replied. "The evidence is consistent. Innovation and trust drive our numbers, not appearances." He slid a tablet forward, screen glowing with charts and graphs. Lines rose where Frank's dipped. Reality against pretense. The silence this time was heavier. Even the hum of the projector seemed to falter. Frank's eyes narrowed. He leaned across the table, the marker tapping against the polished wood. "Perhaps at smaller firms that sort of academic exercise has weight," he said, "but here we play at a different level. Experience, not numbers, is what wins." Jordan's gaze held. "Steady. With respect, experience without evidence is simply habit," he said. His voice remained low, unshaken. "And habit is what costs companies millions when the market changes." A breath caught somewhere at the table's edge. Elaine Monroe, watching quietly near the door, allowed her expression to remain neutral, yet her eyes lingered on Jordan, sharp. With recognition, Frank leaned back, smiling now, though it never touched his eyes. "We will proceed with the luxury angle," he declared. "That concludes the discussion." The meeting broke apart with the scrape of chairs and the shuffle of papers. No one spoke as they left, though a few brushed past Jordan with glances that carried something like apology. Later, in the break room, Jordan stood at the coffee machine, filling a paper cup with deliberate care. The hiss of the dispenser filled. The silence. A voice behind him spoke, low, cautious. That was brave. He turned slightly. Asha Thompson, the team's research analyst, stood near the doorway, her eyes scanning the hall before she stepped inside. Her voice was steady, but her hands curled tightly around a folder. "Be careful," she said. "Frank has been here 2 decades. The board listens to him. He does not forget challenges."
Ow.
Jordan met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Noted," he said quietly. Aisha hesitated, then lowered her voice further. It was not just brave, it was necessary. He said what no one else could risk saying. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the vending machine filled the space between them. Then Ayesha straightened, gathering her folder against her chest. She nodded once, then slipped out, leaving the faintest trace of hope in her wake. That night, Jordan sat in his apartment, the city buzzing faintly beyond the glass of his window. His leather notebook lay open, pages filling with precise script. Frank dismisses data, uses tenure as shield. Colleagues silent under weight of his authority. One voice of support. Isha. Significant. He paused, pen hovering. The apartment was quiet except for the steady tick of a clock on the wall. Slowly he closed the notebook, setting it aside. His phone vibrated. A single name lit the screen. He answered, his voice calm. "I am in," he said simply, "and you were right. It is worse than we thought." On the other end, a voice exhaled with both relief and dread. "Stay the course, son. But tread carefully." Jordan's eyes lingered on the city lights, their cold gleam mirrored in the glass. Tomorrow would bring escalation. Tomorrow, silence would no longer be enough. The office smelled of toner and dust that morning, the air heavy with anticipation. A memo had gone out the night before. Weekly strategy review. Attendance mandatory by 9 sharp, the glass-walled conference room was full, sunlight catching the faint scratches in its polished surface. Frank Delaney stood at the head of the table, chest puffed, his navy tie a perfect Windsor knot. He tapped his slides into place, projecting a confidence that bordered on performance. "This," he announced, gesturing to the screen where glossy renderings of celebrities and designer backdrops gleamed, "is the direction that will secure West Haven's next decade. Prestige equals profit. Exclusivity attracts loyalty." His voice filled the room like a sermon. Heads nodded, some from conviction, most from fear. Jordan Hayes listened in silence, the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. His leather portfolio lay open before him, pages lined with numbers, graphs, notes etched in his measured hand. He waited. The silence between Frank's words grew longer, heavier. Colleagues shifted in their seats, pens tapping faintly against notepads. They knew the truth. The data did not match the dream Frank was selling. But no one moved to speak until Jordan's hand rose. The gesture was small, but in that stillness, it was thunder. Frank's eyes flicked toward him, the corner of his mouth tightening. "Yes, Hayes." Jordan's voice was calm, even. "The last 3 quarters show a decline in retention among middle-income buyers. That is where our growth lies, not in luxury." He turned a page, sliding a sheet across the table. "Here are the numbers. Reliability, functionality, and innovation. Those are the qualities our customers value. If we chase prestige, we risk losing the very market that built us." The room shifted. A few leaned forward, eyes scanning the figures. For a flicker of a moment, silence became possibility. Frank's laugh cut it down, low, deliberate, echoing against glass walls. "Numbers, numbers. Numbers," he said, shaking his head. "You young analysts cling to them like life preservers. But markets are not won on spreadsheets. They are won on instinct, on leadership, on vision." Jordan did not blink. "Leadership without truth is theater," he said. "Vision without evidence is guesswork." The words landed harder than volume ever could. Several faces around the table froze, caught between admiration and fear. Frank's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, palms pressing against the table's edge. "You are here to support this department, Mr. Hayes, not to rewrite its doctrine. Know your role." Jordan closed his portfolio with a soft snap. His eyes held Frank's, steady, unwavering. "My role is to protect this company's future," he said. For the first time, Frank's mask cracked, just slightly. After the meeting, whispers trailed Jordan down the hall like shadows. Colleagues brushed past him, some offering fleeting nods, others avoiding his eyes altogether. By the time he reached his desk, a message waited on his monitor. "My office now. -F.D." The blinds were drawn when he entered. A rare thing. Frank stood behind his desk, not sitting. His arms were folded across his chest, and the veins in his neck strained against his collar. "That display was unacceptable," he said, each word clipped. "You undermine me in front of my team again, and you will regret it." Jordan placed his portfolio on the chair before sitting unhurried. "I answered a question with data," he said. Frank's fist struck the desk. The sound cracked through the room. "Do not play games with me. This is not about data. This is about hierarchy. I lead, you follow. End of story." Jordan studied him in silence. The quiet stretched, thick as tar. Then he spoke, voice steady. "If leadership means silencing truth, then it is not leadership at all." Frank's face flushed crimson. He yanked open a drawer, pulled out a paper, and slapped it onto the desk. "Here, since you seem unclear about your place, I have made it simple. Effective immediately, you will handle supply inventory, coffee schedules, and archival filing. Consider it an opportunity to build humility." Jordan read the sheet. His jaw did not move, though his knuckles whitened against the paper. These were not tasks for a strategist. They were tasks meant to humiliate. He folded the assignment carefully, slipping it into his portfolio. Then he stood. "Will that be all?" he asked. Frank smirked. "Yes. End of day, or consider yourself gone." That evening, Jordan sat at his kitchen table, the glow of his desk lamp falling across his leather notebook. His pen moved steadily, recording. The day's exchange in precise detail, pattern confirmed, retaliation for truth, system designed to protect authority, not integrity. He paused, pen tip hovering. The city hummed beyond his window, indifferent. Jordan closed his eyes, breathing. Slow, deliberate. When he opened them again, he reached for his phone. "I need access," he said when the call connected. "Internal complaint records. This is not just one man. It runs deeper." On the other end, silence lingered before a voice answered, heavy with concern. "Are you certain?" "Yes," Jordan said. The voice was calm, but in his eyes burned a quiet fire. "This is only the beginning." The storage room smelled of cardboard and dust. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering like a dying pulse. Piles of old marketing binders leaned against sagging shelves. Their covers yellowed with age. Jordan Hayes knelt on the floor, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms, sorting brochures from a decade ago into labeled boxes. The assignment sheet from Frank Delaney lay folded in his pocket, its edges creased but unwrinkled. He worked methodically, silently, as if cataloging more than paper. Every movement was precise, his posture steady. To a passerby, it looked like obedience. To Jordan, it was documentation, another piece of evidence in the quiet case he was building. Outside the half-open door, voices drifted down the hall. "Had to put him in his place," Frank said, his tone light with false camaraderie. A deeper voice replied, weary. "These hires, they come in expecting the world. Boxes checked, quotas met. HR pushes them through, and then we have to clean up the mess." Their footsteps receded. Silence returned, heavier now. Jordan remained motionless, one hand resting on a stack of forgotten pamphlets. His face betrayed nothing. He resumed his work. Later in the break room, Aisha Thompson found him. She stood by the doorway, glancing around before stepping closer. "This is ridiculous," she said softly, her arms crossed. "Coffee schedules? Philen? You are a strategist." Jordan stirred his cup slowly, watching the swirl of dark liquid. "Some battles are fought differently," he said. Her frustration tightened her voice. "And in the meantime, he parades around as if humiliating you proves his power." Jordan finally looked at her, his expression unreadable but steady. "Power shows itself," he said. "All you have to do is give it time." The words lingered, quiet but certain. Aisha said nothing more. Yet when she left, her eyes carried something like belief. That night, Jordan sat at his desk, his apartment dark but for the lamp's yellow glow. His leather notebook lay open, pages filling with neat rows of script observed. Direct retaliation. Task assignment inconsistent with role. Witness. Aisha. Evidence. Hallway exchange with management. Verbatim notes recorded. He paused, listening to the faint hum of traffic below. Then he reached for his laptop, connecting through secure access. Granted by a name only he could call upon. West Haven. Personnel files opened like a ledger of ghosts. Complaint after complaint scrolled across the screen, each stamped with a final verdict. Insufficient evidence. Case closed. Names repeated. Women. People of color. All leaving within months of filing. Jordan read silently, jaw tightening as the pattern revealed itself. 15 years. 6 official complaints tied to Frank Delaney, each buried beneath polished language and procedural dismissal. His phone buzzed. He answered quickly. "You were right," he said, his voice low but steady. "Runs deep. He has left a trail wide enough for anyone to see if they care to look." On the other end, silence stretched. Then the voice of his father, weighted with both authority and concern, filled the line. "In this now, Jordan. Come upstairs. I will clear a position for you. You have proven your point." Jordan's eyes lingered on the rows of files, the names of those who had walked away in silence. He shook his head, though his father could not see it. "No," he said firmly. "That would make me part of the same system. 2 more weeks. I need all of it." The line went quiet, but his father did not argue. The call ended. Jordan leaned back, closing his notebook with deliberate care. The city lights beyond his window burned cold and distant, indifferent, he whispered. The words into the empty room, his voice carrying more conviction than volume. "This is not just about me anymore." The quarterly review carried the weight of ritual. Executives polished their shoes to mirrors, ties straightened twice before entering. The air inside the atrium conference hall carried the scent of fresh coffee and nerves, its high ceiling amplifying. Every cough, every shuffle of papers. Jordan Hayes arrived early. His charcoal suit fit like armor, his blue tie knotted with precision. He set up the projector with calm efficiency, his movements unhurried. 2 colleagues passing by, he was invisible against the quiet man at the corner desk, handling the machinery. Of the day, Frank Delaney entered moments later, energy taut as wire. He checked his reflection in the glass wall before brushing past Jordan. "Where's the coffee service?" he hissed. "I told you to handle it." Jordan turned, his expression still. "You asked me to prepare the updated projections," he said evenly. "I did last night." Frank's jaw tightened. "Your role is whatever I say it is. Get it done." But before Jordan could answer, the room began to fill. Executives, board members, and directors streamed in, their murmurs low and careful. Frank's glare lingered a beat longer before he straightened his cuffs and assumed his smile. When his turn arrived, Frank spoke like a man unveiling prophecy. Slides glowed with campaigns and metrics numbers drawn from Jordan's research. Language stolen word for word from his reports. Jordan sat at the far end of the table, his portfolio open, notes precise. His gaze did not waver, though the work flashing on the screen was his. The CFO, sharp and unsparing, interrupted midway. "These customer acquisition numbers explain the calculation. They seem optimistic." Frank hesitated. His smile faltered. Papers shuffled as he searched for words. Jordan raised his hand. Calm, deliberate. The CFO turned to him. "Mr. Hayes, you seem prepared. Can you elaborate?"
Us.
Jordan's voice carried no triumph, only clarity. "The calculation reflects a segmentation analysis. Our retention rates are highest among middle-income professionals. By adjusting outreach toward that demographic, acquisition costs lower by 12%. Page 3 of my report details the methodology." Silence fell, then nods spread around the table. The CFO leaned back, impressed. "That is the clarity I was looking for." Frank's smile returned, brittle now. "As I was saying before the interruption, actually," the CFO cut in. "Let us hear more from Hayes. His grasp of the numbers is refreshing." Jordan continued, precise and unshaken, guiding the executives through the data. The room leaned toward him, not away. Respect was not granted. It was earned moment by moment, number by number. When the meeting adjourned, applause did not follow. But the silence that settled was different this time. It carried weight. Recognition, unspoken but undeniable, had shifted. Frank cornered Jordan. Afterward, in an empty conference room, blinds were closed, the door shut with a deliberate click. "You humiliated me," he spat, his face red, breath hot with fury. In front of the entire executive team, Jordan placed his notes neatly on the table, his posture calm. "I answered questions about my own work." "Your work?" Frank stepped closer, finger stabbing the air. "Nothing here belongs to you. You exist in this department because I allow it. You are a placeholder, a quota, nothing more." Jordan's eyes did not leave his. "I've contributed measurable value," he said quietly. "The numbers do not lie." Frank's voice rose, sharp enough to draw glances through the glass wall. "Mean nothing without power, and you have none. Know your place, Hayes, or I will bury you in this company so deep you will choke on dust." Jordan did not answer. He gathered his notes, his movements deliberate, and left the room. Outside, several employees stood frozen, eyes darting away when he passed. But Jordan saw the truth in their silence. They had heard. The walls of Frank Delaney's authority had cracked. And once cracks appear, walls do not hold for long. The office shifted in ways small, but telling. Conversations hushed when Jordan Hayes walked past. Eyes lingered longer than before, curiosity and unease woven together. Colleagues who once avoided him now carried an edge of recognition, though none dared speak it aloud. Frank Delaney, meanwhile, grew louder. His laugh rang harsher in hallways, his voice cut sharper in meetings. Authority, when threatened, often mistook volume for strength. That week, Jordan's desk was moved without warning. Without explanation from the collaborative, spaced to a dim corner beside the supply closet. The reasoning, delivered with a thin smile from Frank, was optimization of floor space. The corner smelled faintly of bleach and stale paper. Jordan unpacked his satchel in silence, arranging his portfolio and notebook with the same care. As before, he did not protest. He documented. By midweek, a storm brewed quietly in the marketing department. Jordan's research had found its way into another campaign deck, presented upstairs as Frank's team led innovation. The language was identical, insights unmistakably his. Jordan said nothing. He sat through the applause, his expression unreadable. Yet in his leather notebook the entry was meticulous. Presentation. Apex Technologies. Strategy lifted verbatim. Credit assigned to Delaney. Witnesses present. Entire department. Record updated. When the meeting broke, Bradley Whitman, young, eager, still smelling faintly of newness, pulled Jordan aside. His voice was hushed, guilt pressing at the edges. "I did not want to take credit," Bradley whispered, eyes fixed on. "The floor, Frank told me I had to. Said if I pushed back, I would be finished before I started." Jordan studied him. The young man's hands trembled against his coffee cup. Shame lived in the slump of his shoulders. "You knew the work was mine," Jordan said quietly. Bradley nodded, shame tightening his throat. "I am sorry." Jordan placed a hand lightly on the younger man's arm. "And remember this moment," he said, "and decide who you want to be when it matters." Bradley said nothing more. But his silence this time carried weight. That evening, Jordan's apartment was lit only by the lamp on his desk. The leather notebook lay open, flanked by his laptop, its screen filled with digital records. Complaint files, performance reviews, promotion data, all forming a lattice of patterns too precise to be coincidence. 6 complaints tied to Frank Delaney, each dismissed. 14 employees of color or women leaving within months of filing. Performance scores skewed, promotions withheld, a system of quiet erasure masquerading as professionalism. Jordan's pen moved, the words deliberate, systemic, not individual. Requires exposure, not removal. Strategy. Escalate evidence through formal review. 2 weeks remaining. He paused, setting the pen down. The silence of the room pressed against him, heavy and intimate. The phone on his desk buzzed. He answered immediately. "How much longer?" his father's voice asked, clipped with worry. 2 weeks, Jordan said. "Maybe less. He is unraveling in public now. People are watching. Then let me pull you out before it turns." Jordan's voice remained steady, unyielding. "No, If I leave now, the culture remains. He falls. Another takes his place. Nothing changes. There was silence on the line, the weight of paternal fear pressing against executive calculation. You are playing with fire, his father said finally. Jordan's eyes flicked to the rows of names on the screen. Employees discarded, silenced, forgotten. Sometimes fire is the only thing that clears the field, he answered softly. When the call ended, Jordan leaned back, staring out at the city's glittering skyline. His reflection in the glass looked calm, but his notebook told the truth. The storm was no longer coming. It was already here. Rain lashed against the glass walls that morning, streaking the city in gray. The conference room smelled of damp coats and fresh ink as the marketing team gathered for a high-stakes client pitch. Apex Technologies, the account that could define the quarter, waited on the other side of the glass. Jordan Hayes was not invited to the meeting. Instead, he stood in the hallway, ostensibly organizing old binders on a shelf. From there, he could see through the glass the long, polished table, the executives in dark suits, the nervous shuffle of papers. Bradley Whitman sat at the head of the presentation, his face pale, his posture stiff. Frank Delaney loomed behind. Him, every gesture claiming authority. The slides on the screen were Jordan's, his phrasing, his research, his strategy. He watched as Bradley stumbled through questions. Numbers confused him. Phrasing faltered. Each time Frank stepped in, smooth and confident, claiming credit with practiced ease. Then the Apex CTO leaned forward, his voice cutting through the room. This consumer journey mapping is remarkable. Who authored this framework? We want to work with them directly. A flicker of silence. Bradley froze. His eyes darted toward Frank. Frank smiled easily. This was developed collaboratively, he said. But I personally guided the framework. My experience with similar markets allowed us to refine the approach. Jordan's hand tightened around the binder he held. His expression did not shift, but his eyes darkened. He set the binder carefully, back on the shelf, committing every word to memory. The celebration afterward was loud, forced. Laughter and clinking mugs of coffee in the break room, congratulations flying toward Frank. He soaked it in, his grin wide, his eyes sharp with victory. Jordan entered quietly, filling a paper cup with water. His presence cooled the air like a shadow. Later, when the others dispersed, Jordan approached Bradley near the sink. The young man's shoulders sagged beneath the weight of silence. You knew it was mine, Jordan said softly. Bradley nodded, eyes fixed on the countertop. His voice cracked. He told me if I gave you credit, I would be finished here. He said it happens to everyone, especially he stopped. Jordan's eyes narrowed. Especially people like me. Bradley swallowed hard, shame etched into his face. He nodded once. Jordan placed his cup down gently. Then remember how it feels, because one day you will have to choose which kind of man you are. The words landed, heavier than any accusation. Bradley's throat worked, but no answer came. That night, Jordan's apartment was silent, but for the tapping of keys. His laptop screen glowed with stolen hours of labor records, emails. Testimony gathered with the precision of a surgeon. A folder labeled West Haven Reform filled the screen. Inside, files detailed a pattern of buried complaints, promotion data, revealing skewed advancement, and the transcript of today's meeting typed verbatim. Jordan leaned back, rubbing a hand across his jaw. He was tired. But his eyes held a quiet fire. He picked up his phone, dialing a familiar number. I need complete access, he said when his father answered. Server archives, complaint histories. If I do not move now, the evidence will vanish. Jordan. Richard Westhaven's voice was tight, lined with both authority and worry. You have done enough. You are risking more than you know. No, Jordan interrupted softly. This is no longer about me. If I stop now, I am complicit. 2 more weeks. That is all I need. Silence stretched on the line. At last his father exhaled. Then God help you, son, he said. Jordan ended the call, turned back to his screen, the cursor blinking in rhythm with the storm outside. The walls around Frank Delaney were crumbling. Slowly, quietly. but inevitably, the quarterly assembly filled the atrium like a cathedral. Nearly every employee stood shoulder to shoulder, the sound of murmured conversations rising against glass walls and steel beams. The air smelled faintly of coffee, wet umbrellas, and anticipation. Frank Delaney stood near the front, his suit sharp, his smile fixed. His posture carried the same arrogance it always had, chin high, chest out. But his eyes flicked restlessly toward the executive platform. Something in his gut told him the ground beneath him was shifting. Jordan Hayes entered quietly from the side. His presence carried no announcement, no flourish. But the murmurs softened as he moved through the crowd. Colleagues, who once averted their eyes, now turned toward him, subtle nods tracing his path. At the center of the atrium, Richard Westhaven stepped to the podium. His voice, heavy with years of authority, carried over the crowd. Today we examine not just numbers, but culture. A company's strength lies not only in its profits, but in how it treats its people. He gestured toward Jordan. For the past month, one of you has lived this truth firsthand. Frank's head snapped toward him. A faint, nervous laugh bubbled in his throat. This is absurd, he muttered. He is no one. But Jordan stepped forward, his leather notebook in hand, his voice steady. My name is Jordan Hayes Westhaven, he said, the words cutting clean through the atrium. I came here not as an executive, but as an employee, to see with my own eyes what our company had become. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eyes widened. Whispers darted like sparks. Frank's face drained of color. Jordan opened his notebook, his hand calm, his gaze unwavering. What I found, he said, was talent silenced, ideas stolen, complaints buried. A system designed to protect authority rather than merit. A system personified in this man. He turned toward Frank. The atrium followed his gaze. Frank's composure cracked. This is entrapment, he spat, his voice breaking. I have given 20 years to this company, 20 years of loyalty. Loyalty to yourself, Jordan replied quietly. Not to the people you were meant to lead. On the screen behind him, data filled the display records. Testimony, numbers that spoke with unassailable clarity. 6 complaints buried. 14 departures. Promotions withheld. Ideas stolen. Each tied to Frank Delaney. The silence that followed was not empty. It was judgment. Richard's voice broke it. Cold, final. Frank Delaney, you are suspended pending full investigation. Please surrender your access and leave the building. Security stepped forward. Frank's eyes darted wildly, searching for allies and finding none. His voice rose, desperate now. This plant set me up. Jordan closed his notebook. Gently, no, he said. You set yourself up the day you decided some people were worth less than others. The words landed heavier than any shout. Frank's shoulders slumped as he was escorted out. The atrium remained silent until the doors closed behind him. Then slowly the silence shifted, first into scattered applause, then into a rising swell that filled the glass hall with sound. Jordan did not smile. He did not bask in triumph. He only looked out at the crowd, his voice carrying one final truth. Respect is not granted, he said. It is earned. Today we begin earning it back. Applause grew, rolling upward through steel and glass like thunder, and for the first time since he arrived, Jordan Hayes Westhaven was not seen as an outsider, nor as an heir. He was seen as something far greater, a man who had chosen silence long enough to make truth undeniable.